This meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman will now come to order. Please rise for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, you have before you a copy of the modified written agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the agenda as written? Alderman Corey.
Yeah, at the previous meeting, I had mentioned an interest in seeing us potentially return to the consent agenda. I think the point had been made before that we need to be very careful with it. It's something that can be a great asset to us to kind of proceed through these meetings, but we should also remember that each of us has a responsibility to make sure that we review it beforehand, and since it requires unanimous approval from all the members of the board, we each have a certain responsibility to make sure that we carefully watch the items on it. So if the board is willing, I would like to consider at least going back and looking at it again, maybe on a trial basis or whatever is necessary. And so I just want to bring that up. And if no one has any objections, I would be willing to even
Mr. Mayor, may I be recognized?
propose one.
You may.
I'm sorry, gentlemen. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Mayor's last meeting, the gentleman from Ford did raise some comments about the desire to return to the consent agenda. And after that meeting, I have given a careful thought and consideration to his comments that he made at the July 3, 2012 meeting. And I am going to agree to for the consent agenda to be reinstated on a trial basis effective immediately.
All right, Alderman Corey, do you wish to propose adding a consent agenda item to the agenda?
Yes, sir, I would.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to add a new item, which would be item 3A, approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, you now have a consent agenda on the agenda, but you do not have any items on the consent agenda.
I have some proposed items.
All right.
For the consent agenda, I'd like us to consider adding both items under mayor's business, items A and B.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to add items 9A and 9B to the consent agenda as presented. Is there any objection to that motion? Any objection to that proposed revision? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been added to the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revisions?
Yes, under board business, items B and C, as well as items E and F, with F being Matt Watson, who I believe was the only applicant.
You said B and C.
Yes, sir.
B and C and F.
E and F.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place items B, C, E, and F under Roman numeral 10, board business, onto the consent agenda as presented, with item F naming the appointment to the vacant position on the Commission on Disability as Matt Watson. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
And also under board business, item K, I was going to add that.
Item what? Item what?
You got one?
Item, you don't,
What he said?
item K.
Item K.
All right, so that proposed revision from Alderman Corey would now stand at items B, C, E, and F, with the appointment made in item F being Matt Watson, and item K to be added to the consent agenda under Roman numeral 10, board business. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
All right. Is there any objection to that proposed revision? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note the change.
I also had some items under departments, just to, if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read through those.
Okay.
Departmental business, item B, number 1.
All right. Proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place item 11B1, the approval of appointing building official Joyner Williams as City of Starkville ADA coordinator as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revision?
Yeah, under electric department, item D, number 1.
All right. Proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place item 11D1, the authorization for SED to utilize Reeves Aerial and Utility Equipment Company to refurbish a 19 Terex 55-foot man lift bucket truck that was purchased in 2002 for an estimated cost of $22.50 as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revisions?
Under item F, items 1, 2, and 3.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place all matters under item 11F on the consent agenda. The approval of the City of Starkville claims docket, except for the fire department, report of receipts and expenditures for the period ending June 30th, 2012, and change order for the purpose of additional training for Tyler Technology, all as presented. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revisions?
Yeah, unless there are any objections to any of the individual items, I'd like to add all 8 items under personnel.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to add all items under 11I to the consent agenda. That includes the authorization of the hire of Pamela Simpson, the authorization to advertise to fill a vacant position of Maintenance Worker 1 in Construction Rehab Division of Public Services, the authorization for advertisement to fill the vacant position of firefighter, the authorization to fill the vacant position of apprentice lineman in the electric department, authorization to advertise to fill the vacant position of meter technician in the electric department, authorization to hire Tavares Smith to fill the vacant position of laborer in sanitation and environmental services, approval for a pay increase for Calvin Ware in accordance with City of Starkville pay adjustment policy, approval to hire certified police officer as a temporary part-time employee to serve as security officer and perform other related duties, all as presented. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any
One question
objection?
I've got on Calvin Ware's issue, is that one that we go back and reimburse him for the day he started those duties, or is that effective?
No, that's the effective at the
tomorrow?
180-day point.
Okay, thank you.
Further, excuse me, any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been added to the consent agenda. Do we have any further proposed revisions, Alderman Corey?
Police department, J, number 1.
All right, proposed revision from Alderman Corey is to place item 11J1, the approval of reimbursement for damages for pressure washer used in conjunction with police department preparation for CALIA inspection as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Corey, do you have further proposed revision?
And lastly, item K, items 1 and 2.
All right, proposed revisions from Alderman Corey are to place both matters under under Roman numeral 11K on the consent agenda. Those items are the approval to purchase valves and fittings for the Northeast Starkville Phase 1 Fire Protection Project from Central Pipe and Supply, and the purchase of 2,400 feet of 6-inch water, 6-inch water pipe from Southern Pipe and Supply, both as presented. Alderman Corey, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Saying none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. Do we have any further? Alderman Davis.
I've got a few I'd like to add in there as well. Under board business, item H, to the consent, please.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 10H, a resolution approval of resolution to adjudicate the cost of demolition and cleanup of 6 dilapidated properties as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, do you have further proposed revision?
Item I to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 10I, the approval of a resolution to adjudicate the cost of mowing, cleaning, and debris removal from 3 formerly dilapidated properties as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Do I hear any objection?
I have a question, not an objection. Is this a continuation of something that we have mowed in the past, or is this, and is there anything that we need to affirm in mowing them again, or is this all past costs?
This is, I'm sorry, this, go ahead.
My understanding is that this is past costs, that there was an adjudication of menace to the welfare of the public, and this is just assessing the cost that it took to clean up the property.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda. Further proposed revision.
I'd like to add item J to consent. I've got some details to go along with that as well. The first of which, and I've reduced this to writing, and Ms. Sproul has a copy of this. I'll go ahead and.
If you're gonna reduce your writing, can we just leave it on the regular agenda?
Absolutely,
Okay.
that's fine. Item L, under the revised agenda, the re-advertisement or rebidding of Brush Arbor Cemetery, I'd like to add that to consent.
Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place item 10L, the approval of rebidding the Brush Arbor Cemetery cutting based on more specific criteria as presented on the consent agenda. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection?
I just have a question. Does the bidder that we had in our packet, I know they haven't withdrawn, I mean, the bid wasn't specific enough? Is that why we're rebidding?
That is the rationale, I believe, Alderman
Yeah,
Dumas.
there were some questions about the bid in terms of how to maintain, well, the bid itself advertised for mowing and weed eating. And that property has some non-mowing and weed eating maintenance needs that were not addressed in the bid specs. And so those were not addressed in the bid itself, so we need to re-advertise with more specific
They're okay,
specifications.
they're okay re-advertising? They okay re-advertising?
I've not been in
That's
contact
fine,
with them.
that's fine.
Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any,
We will be in touch with them though and let them know.
Right.
any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, that matter's been placed on the consent agenda.
And then finally, the 2 items that were added under sanitation and environmental services, I'd like to add those to consent.
All right, Alderman Dumas has proposed revising the agenda to place items 11L1 and 11L2 on the consent agenda. That is the approval of the advertisement for a lease purchase on a CAT 312DL excavator for the landfill and authorization to accept the best bid as presented, as well as authorization to engage an engineer for the purpose of providing a survey of the boundary lines for the rubbish landfill on Rock Hill Road as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your proposed revision?
It is.
Any objection?
I have a question on L1. I don't know if we can change that. I want to make sure that that is a bid based on traditional open bid practices, not reverse bidding.
Okay, so that would be, Alderman Dumas, do you accept
I
that
think
as a
that is
friendly amendment?
Absolutely.
All right, that would be the proposed revision to item 11L1, in addition to placing it on the consent agenda as presented, will specify that that is a traditional sealed closed bid process.
Sealed closed bid, exactly.
Is there any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, those matters have been placed on the consent agenda. further proposed revisions?
Mayor,
Alderman Corey?
I would also like to pull the minutes from July 3rd, 2012, pending further review.
All right, Alderman Corey has proposed revising the agenda to pull item 4C, the approval of the July 3rd, 2012 minutes from the agenda. Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, please note that item 4C has been pulled from the agenda. Further proposed revisions. Do we have any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Any further proposed revisions? Seeing no further proposed revisions, a motion to approve the agenda as revised is in order.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey to approve the agenda as revised. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. You now have before you the consideration of the approval of the consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of the consent agenda as revised? Any objection to the approval of the consent agenda? Any objection? Any objection? Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda has been approved. And that will take us to the approval of the minutes. The first set of minutes you have before you are from the June 5th minutes of the regular meeting of the Starkville Board of Alderman. Discussion. Alderman Parker.
Mayor, I'd like to say a few things about these minutes, and I think, as everybody knows, I actually had to write them down. I usually don't write anything down, but I don't think I can muddle through this without having something written down. But I think, as everybody knows, with the approval of these minutes, it makes our action on June 5th an official act of this board. And I just want to say a few things before we take that vote. And as most of you know, I've taken this vote very seriously, and I've looked at it from every angle that I thought I could. I've talked to many, many people on both sides of this issue, both in my ward, in other wards, and even outside the city limits for some reason. I mean, I have been up front, and I have been comfortable from the beginning with the idea of a public-private partnership. I've been okay with the idea of locating the building in its current location and that as it's proposed. I mean, the plan I have reviewed so far is not extravagant by any means, but it satisfies the needs for the employees of the city hall, and it satisfies our police department needs. There's no doubt that the public perception of this project was an epic fail from the start. And even though I wasn't on the committee that reviewed the bids and worked with a selected firm, I mean, I take responsibility for not making sure that it was more publicized and that certain groups or citizens in town were not more educated about the process and the plans that the city was undertaking. The main concern I've had from the very beginning has been the tax implications that it will have on our future budgets. We all know that there are many projects out there that need to be addressed and paid for. Selfishly, I see a great need to address the South Montgomery corridor, so that's one that I think is going to be coming up in the future, I hope. I do think this board has done a good job of planning for the future by implementing a 10-year capital improvement plan, a road plan, and we've actually budgeted for those things. In every budget we have coming up, we have line items for those specific things. There's other areas that we've planned and budgeted for the future. There are definitely, of course, going to be things that come up that are unexpected and unplanned for, and we also have to make sure we have a reserve fund that is going to take care of those issues as well. When I look long term for the city, I really have to wear a totally different hat because by nature I'm a very optimistic person. I mean, I have to be in the business I'm in because I've got enough business for a year, and that's all I got. And if I don't do my job good enough, I don't even have that much. So I mean, I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I understand that I have to take that hat off. And when I look at business for the city, it's a completely different matter. I've taken a very conservative approach to our budget over the course of the last 2 or 3 years when I've been on the budget committee. I've taken a look, personally taken a look at efficiencies we've had in other departments, and I like to think we've become more efficient in some other areas that I've had experience in. And I truly have always voted on this board table on what I thought was best for Ward 3 and for the city of Starkville. I said at the beginning, rather easily back then, that I wouldn't make any vote based on getting reelected. And I really can't remember a vote that I have done based on me getting reelected. That's probably the beauty of being a locally elected official is we, nobody at this board table does it for the money. You do it because you want to help and you want to make this city better. We don't all agree on what's going to make this city better and what's going to make this city worse. I've been for and against issues with everybody at this table. And I know many people have compared the decisions and politics that this board has made to national level politics, and this just my personal opinion. I just don't think that that's true, that it's not a national level political realm that we have here at this board table. If anybody who's been to Jackson and seen our state legislature work, or Washington and seen our federal work, we just have a different set of problems and opportunities here that's a more localized type thing. And I ran and got elected as a Republican, and I still have those same beliefs and convictions to this day, probably even more than I had when I first got elected. But I don't think that being a Republican means that I have to disagree or fight with everything a Democratic opponent or constituent might have. I don't think it means I have to be against everything. I think it means I should look at everything, and anything that's fiscally responsible or a good idea, I think I should take a look at that. Again, this is a personal opinion, but I think in our national economy, our national scene, that's what's wrong with a lot of this. I think we have two groups that are, one's on one side, one's on another, and nobody is working in here to try to find real world, real life solutions to the problems we have in Starkville and Mississippi and in this country. But again, on a local level, I just don't think that, I think we have a different set of circumstances and opportunities and problems that we have to deal with. As far as the previous bond issues have gone, the one many years ago failed. It failed by a very small margin. The voters in Ward 3 were actually overwhelmingly in support of that bond issue many years ago. Last year's bond issue failed. Actually, the voters in Ward 3 were almost 50-50 voting for and against it. They were only 5 votes short of being 50-50 in my ward, in Ward 3. And that is with Ward 3 had double the turnout of any other ward. And it had almost 9 times the turnout of one ward in particular. So that's a lot of voices in Ward 3. Do I think the people that voted for the bond issue this last time voted for me in the last election? Probably not. Do I think that the people that voted against the bond issue in this last election will support me and vote for me again if I support this? Probably not. However, for the people that voted against it, the input and feedback that I got was that they did not want increased taxes, and they did not want us to have an extravagant $14 million building. Those were the 2 major things that I got. I can assure you, I can assure everybody that I have studied these numbers, both past, present, future, and I do firmly believe that the numbers that we're using, the numbers that we presented, that they're not going to cripple this city. That they're conservative in nature. I mean, I understand that. I mean, I can't run my household, and we can't run. There are going to be things that come up that we can't account on. There are going to be things that we're not planning for, and that's just part of everyday life. If I tried to run my household or this city based on doomsday scenarios, then we would never get anything done or accomplished. I do also realize that this city has lived on growth for over 20 years. And that's what's allowed us to keep our taxes low relative to the other communities. I mean, you can't say that for the county or for the school, but hopefully with the new leadership that they have in place, that they can change that also. And I know some people. I mean, I have been with my votes on this board. I have been the fourth or swing, or I have been that vote a lot. And while some people may find that an envious position, I have taken every vote very seriously. Sometimes it's required to vote no. Sometimes you have to vote no, and you need to vote no. To vote no is sometimes a lot easier. You always got an excuse. If it doesn't succeed, I voted no. I was out of that. Even to consider yes, in my opinion, takes much more thought and research and dedication and a commitment to this city to even consider yes, not to vote, but to even just open your mind and consider yes and the possibilities. I can promise everybody that I am for what's best for this city. And as far as the citizens voting on this particular project, I think this community, I honestly think this community is everybody has their own idea of what this thing should be, what it should look like, where it should go, how much it costs. And I think everybody has their own ideas about that. And it's going to be hard to get a consensus, a total consensus on one, even if there's no tax implications, I think it's going to be hard to get a consensus on any one project because nobody wants to look at other ideas. And when we had a committee 2 years ago that looked at this city from a beginning, and they took 6 or 8 months and looked at every possibility that we could have, and they made a proposal to us. But that doesn't change the needs that we have as a city. I just truly feel like with hard, diligent work on future budgets, that this project will not require a tax increase. I mean, I know the project itself can't require a tax increase, but I'm talking about a tax increase by saying that I need some money to do this when we would have had it had we not done this. I don't think we'll get there. I don't think we'll have to have that. I do want to thank everybody for calling and emailing and coming by, and I mean, I've tried to speak with as many people as I could, and I've taken all those thoughts and considerations and conversations into the decision-making process that I've had. I hope you can tell that I've taken this extremely seriously. And I hope everybody knows, whether I've been for or against for 3 years and another year coming up, I mean, I have considered all angles, and I have truly thought about it. In conclusion, I mean, after all the deliberation and thinking, I mean, I will continue to support the minutes being approved tonight, and I will support the continuation of this project for the city of Starkville because I think it's the right thing to do. That's my opinion, Mayor, and I will yield the floor.
All right, further discussion.
Move approval of June 5 minutes.
Motion has been made by Alderman Dumas to approve of the June 5th minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville as presented. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Sistrunk. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
No.
Any discussion? Alderman Carver.
Well, I agree with Alderman Perkins on a couple things, but I disagree with him. One is when you get on this board, you probably don't, local parties, on the local level, parties probably don't matter much, and I've seen that, and if anything, we've had every kind of combination of votes you can imagine on this board over the last 3 years that you can't hardly fathom which way something can be voted. And at the MMIF conference, I told somebody I bragged on this board, I said, you know, that's a good thing. I think that's when people are individually and collectively looking at each item and voting different. But I'm going to have to disagree with you on what you said about, you know, if you want to vote no because of a party or something like that, you shouldn't do that. But you should vote no because of convictions, and but more importantly, you should vote, I think, for each and every item for how your people, you know, want you to vote. And you should be representative of your people. And I'm not going to support this for a couple of reasons, and I think y'all know my reasons. One, I think it's kind of risky. Two, as an alderman, I didn't even get the packet until the night before. A lot of times Alderman Perkins says, you know, we do get things the night of and the night before. That was a packet that I didn't even get to study in time. I thought it was kind of rushed through, and you see the implications of that is since then we've kind of argued about putting items on the consent agenda because I think that sometimes we try to rush things through. And it's something as divisive as this, you definitely need to discuss wholly. And then the other was the fact that, you know, a gentleman came up one night and he made a good point. He said, we're going to have some of these, this is going to be funded through some old bonds rolling off, and he got a chuckle out of the room. And that's what's wrong with the mindset right now is to laugh at something like that. To laugh at the fact that we might just let our tax burden go down. Well, why don't we? You know, if this is such a good project, again, I say let's put it up for a public vote, and if it is such a good project, it'll pass. If it isn't, it won't pass. But with this process that's going to happen tonight, is that the public won't ever be afforded that opportunity. You'll have 4 people up here that'll pass the minutes, and then that'll be it. So I'm going to go a step further and say if what I think is going to happen is going to happen, you have a 4-3 vote. And with that, you know, local government especially, you have checks and balances. And so this is just yet another check and balance process in this. And if it does pass, I think that everybody in the community ought to use this as maybe a cohesive point in our community. You know, if this does pass, it's something that we shouldn't fight tooth and nail, you know, during the phase of development and the final phases all the way to the first day we get to walk in the door. So, I mean, it is local government in the last 3 years, first time I've been elected. This is definitely a checks and balance kind of business. I don't think the parties matter other than election day. I really don't. I think that once we get up here, I've agreed and disagreed with everybody up here on every combination that you can imagine, you know, that you can imagine, and you've seen that over the last 3 boards, which is a good thing. But I can't support this. I agree with you on some things. I disagree with you on others. I disagree with you on this one. So, thank you.
Further discussion, Alderman Sistrunk.
And I'm not going to come down on, with any statements about that. Both gentlemen have made good points. I would like to, just as we're voting, for each of you to remember that what we're ultimately voting about is approving the minutes, which is saying that we are making the actions that were taken previously official, and it's simply saying that they are properly recorded. It's not an additional vote on this particular project. It's simply a notation that the minutes properly reflect the prior action of the board. So.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Dumas' motion to approve the minutes, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. By a vote of 4 in favor with 3 against, this measure passes. The next matter on the agenda is the approval of the June 19th minutes. Discussion.
Move approval.
Motion has been made by Alderman Corey.
That includes the corrections provided by the city attorney.
Motion's been made by Alderman Corey to approve of the June 19th, 2012 minutes of a recess meeting of the Board of Aldermen of the City of Starkville, including the changes made by the city attorney. Alderman Corey, is that your motion? Do I hear a second? Second. Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Corey, do you speak on the merits?
Thanks.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? All those in favor of Alderman Corey's motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of the approval of the July 10th minutes. Discussion.
So moved.
Motion has been made by Alderman Parker to approve of the July 10th, 2012 minutes as presented. Alderman Parker, is that your motion?
I think so. Y'all looking at me like, yeah.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Parker, do you wish to speak on the merits?
Yeah.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that will take us to announcements and comments by the mayor and the members of the board. And I have just one announcement tonight, which is the introduction of the 2 newest members of the City of Starkville workforce. And it is first my pleasure to introduce Joyner Williams. And Joyner may get the award for having the longest employee introduction, but it's all impressive. So, the City of Starkville would like to welcome Joyner Williams as our new building official for the Building Codes and Planning Department. Joyner is originally from West Point, Mississippi, and attended West Point High School. He currently lives in Steens and attends Cornerstone Worship Center. Joyner has an extensive background in building and construction. He is a certified master electrician. He worked for the city of West Point for 9 years as their building inspector and official. He has extensive experience in building inspections, including mechanical, plumbing, and electrical inspections. He served on the charter committee for the Southern Building Code Congress International to create the first Mississippi standardized contractors exam covering 4 disciplines. This was adopted by both West Point and Columbus. Before coming to work at the city of Starkville, Joyner was employed with Mid-South Resource Management Services, where he was responsible for logistics and mobilization of crews and equipment for a land, water, and timber resource management company through cost share funding from the USDA. He led an effort that was selected and funded by Mississippi Land, Water, and Timber, along with Mississippi Technologies Group, to design and build 2 cogeneration power plants converting cattle and swine waste to quantifiable electricity. Joyner is one of 7 children, 6 boys and 1 girl, born to Daniel and Inez Williams. He is the proud father of 2 children, Shane and Hannah, and enjoys spending time with his 4 grandchildren. He also enjoys spending time with his girlfriend, Jo Prather, as well as gardening and reading. Please join me in welcoming Joyner. I would now like to introduce Calvin Young, who is our newest employee for Public Services. It is my pleasure to welcome Calvin Young as a maintenance worker in the Water Division for the Public Services Department. Calvin is from Starkville and graduated from Starkville High School. He also attended East Mississippi Community College in Scuba. Calvin previously worked for Bell Construction, hanging and finishing drywall. Calvin is the son of John and Mary Young. In his spare time, he enjoys sports, especially football. Calvin attends the Church of the Living God. Please join me in welcoming Calvin Young. All right, that concludes my comments for this evening. Do we have any comments from the members of the board? Any comments from the members of the board? Seeing none, we'll move to citizen comments. At this time, any citizen wishing to make comments this evening may do so by coming forward, introducing yourself, and you'll be recognized to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes.
Greeting to the board, Mayor and board. My name is Alvin Turner, Ward 7. I want to recognize Vice Mayor Citron and Alderman Vaughn.
Thank you.
At the last meeting, the citizens said that they were enough was enough. The meeting after that, they said that they were fed up. Now, the citizens are enraged. The people of Carver Drive they have civil rights. The civil rights of the people of Carver Drive have been violated. The health department number in Starkville is 323-4565. We would like to hear something from the health department about Carver Drive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Further citizen comment.
Good evening, Henry Smithman from Ward 7. Here before you at your meeting before last, and I raised several issues concerning with you at your July 3rd meeting, and basically concerning the public-private process. And I'm concerned about the process. And I am particularly concerned about the lack of any open meetings. And I might add today that even through this whole process, there's been very little board, I say approval. The minutes doesn't reflect what this committee was doing, and the public was completely left out of it. I appreciate Eric's and Ben's comments today. I was hoping some others would make some comments, especially some others that voted in affirmative, that, you know, the public first really heard about this when the resolution was presented. And that's really the first the public really knew about it. Alderman Carver had requested that the minutes be delayed and to be voted on today. Once again, other than a couple speaking to it, there's been very little public discussion on this. You know, I think Alderman Carver related to some checks and balances along the way, and obviously you're leaving the citizens with very limited options. I mean, we really are. If you choose not to address this in a public discussion, I mean, you're absolutely leaving the citizens out of this. And the citizens should have had input throughout. And I firmly believe that we need to do something about our facilities. I firmly believe that the citizens of this community can come together with a very economical approach to this and do the things that will have some very decent facilities to work out of. And everybody will be happy with. Therefore, you know, so if the board continues along, you approve the minutes tonight. I see maybe one-page document there. I believe you had 140 pages that was approved. I don't see that part of the minutes. A lot of fill in blanks. Don't see that part of the minutes. I don't know we know what we approved. But I think you go back and read the video, look at the video, and look at the motion that was made. I'm not sure anybody knows what we approved. Therefore, you're leaving the citizens basically no choice. It's going to have to be challenged. It might be challenged in a judicial setting, and that's a shame. And it really is a shame. We can come together as a community and do what's right. We don't have to be behind closed doors to do the public business. It really doesn't. And we can build some very reasonable facilities that'll be very nice and that will serve the city very well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Smithman. Further citizen comments?
Good evening. Yeah. Oh, I'm tired. My name is Anna Williams. I've been asking, I've been pleading, I've been begging y'all to come check out Carver Drive. Okay. Now things is getting worse. Okay, as of the rain Wednesday and Thursday, my yard was flooded. Okay, and the sewage is in my front yard. And where the sewage is, it's a ditch. And the water's just coming up out of the sewage, and sewage is all over my yard. I called the health department. I called EPA, whatever you want to call them. They did not come out to check out the problem. Okay, the health department came out and checked out the problem. And I'm tired of trying to live in Mississippi and not getting anything done. I'm tired of paying taxes and not getting anything done. It's a health hazard over there. People are getting sick, me especially. And this stuff is in my front yard. I don't appreciate it. I mean, at least y'all could come and see the problem. I've been trying to get y'all to come out there. Had nobody came out there. Only the Tea Party, only some of the people that's concerned about our health and welfare. And it's not that I'm trying to get you to fix the dish because it's there. The problem is, it's a problem. The water stinks. Every time it rains, it stinks even worse. Now my front yard is flooding over with filth. I'm gonna say it like that, filth. And there should be done something about it. And I just can't ask no more. Yes, I can. I need to have a meeting with you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you set a date for a meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And Doug, now might be a good time for you to brief everybody. We had a heavy rain event last week. When we have a very heavy rain event, what happens is we do sometimes get infiltration in our sanitary sewer system. And when that happens, you have what's called surcharging of some of the manholes, and we had some of these events throughout town last week. But Doug and his crew have been working hard to make sure they document every instance of it so that they can begin in the coming days to address it. Doug, would you like to brief everybody on the work of the water department?
Yeah, the lady's absolutely right. You know, we did have some surcharges down on Carver Drive, and it's not a good situation. But it is something we are working on. It's improved a lot. But unfortunately, it rained like the one we had the other day. Actually, I was pulling out the DEQ discharge reports we sent in. We also had them on Edgewood, Woodcrest, Maple Drive, and Linden Circle. So it's kind of a citywide event, but that's not an excuse. We still need to be working and you know, making the situation better and better, so that even in these low areas like Harbor Drive and Woodland Heights, that we've corrected the problem. Next meeting, I'm going to ask for approval from the board to advertise for proposals from professional companies that can come in and actually do detailed camera work in the sewer lines and locate these major sources. Sometimes smoke testing won't identify. So this will be the next step. Just to get in there with a camera, it takes longer, it's more expensive, but it's just something that's a natural part of the process. At the next board meeting, we'll actually be asking for approval to advertise.
Thank you, Doug. And Ms. Williams, if you'd like, you can come by generally here during business hours, or you can call and set up an appointment. Now, I will tell you, my wife is supposed to be having a baby on Thursday. For the next week or so, I will be in and out some. But if you'll call, my assistant will get you on the calendar as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Daisy McDowell, and I'm right on the ditch. And I just wanted to ask one question. Why is Carver Drive ditch this problem? And nobody think it should be closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Further citizen comments? Do we have any further citizen?
My name is Rob Oswald, and I just wanted to, y'all spoke earlier about the rebidding of the Am Arbor Cemetery, and that was actually, it was 3 different bids in that packet. So I just would like to see if we're gonna rebid that one, rebid all of them to be fair, since it was included in one packet, that we rebid all of them, just to be fair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we planning on doing that?
You've approved 2 of them.
2 of them?
Yeah.
And the third one we didn't?
Yep. The third one you did not.
But that was the maintenance issue we were talking about, right?
That was, Alderman Dumas, would you like to elaborate? Alderman Dumas was not satisfied that it conformed to, I guess, the scope of work he was looking for.
Well, the specs written, there were 3 different sets of specs written. There was one per cemetery.
Right.
And the specs written for Oddfellows on 182, the specs written for Oddfellows on University match the maintenance needs of those cemeteries. The specs written for Brush Arbor Cemetery did not meet the uniqueness of that wooded site, because it was just mentioned to be mowing and weed eating, when there were others that were there that there are other issues that are there that deal with woody debris maintenance and other things not associated with that spec. So the other 2 specs were true, and I think the bids reflected that. The third bid for Brush Arbor did not reflect the true nature of the needs there, so those specs need to be rewritten.
Okay.
Further citizen comments?
Yes, I would like to address that, please. I'm over at the Ability Works facility manager, and we bid on that, because the way it was written, and I talked to the city engineer, it was the weeds out there are like 2 feet high. And I think when you all purchased that, you had someone come in and clean it up, and then it was to be maintained. Well, my thought was not to charge as much each time to do the cutting, because there was going to be another charge just to maintain, just to get the weeds out. So, and in the specs it read that you could make an addendum to it if you wanted to add an addendum, and that's why I wrote it that way. And as I said, I had the approval, or I discussed it with someone here. I came down 2 or 3 times to figure out exactly how to do that, because I did not think that we should charge that much money every time to just quote on cutting the grass, because once it's cleared out, it would not cost that much.
Right.
So my thought was, you know, if you're gonna bid one, like you said, I think maybe they'll all be bid.
Well, like I said, I'm comfortable with the specs of the other two. Those are truly maintenance associated with mowing and weed eating. I think there is some confusion with that third spec that deals with not only the front part of that cemetery, but the lot all the way back to Hartness Street, which is a heavily wooded area that has considerable woody undergrowth, and I think those are issues that were not clearly spelled out in the spec, and I think to be fair, those have to be clearly spelled out from the standpoint of the maintenance side.
Well, I think maybe I was just kind of misled on how I should have quoted on
Could you state your name for the record?
it. Marie Patera.
Thank you, Ms. Patera. Do we have any further citizen comment? Any further citizen comment? Any further citizen comment? Seeing none, we'll move to public appearances, and we have two public appearances scheduled for tonight. I think I can speak for the board and say what is always a highlight of our public appearance year. We have the annual presentation from Brickley Miller on the horse park this evening. And y'all will see if you have not seen her presentation what I'm referring to.
Well, Alderman Perkins has probably seen my presentations more than anybody, so my goal is to make him smile first. How about that?
You always do an excellent job.
Thank you. Got the lights on? Can you get the lights for me?
All the lights?
All of them.
No, no.
Is that okay?
Leave one on.
The acting clerk says she needs to be able to see and take notes.
Okay. Well, there we go. How about that?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Yep, I'm ready. Is the volume all the way up? gives you a little idea of what we do at the horse park if you've never been out there. The horse park was built in 1999. It's been a true success and a great amenity for our community. We've done great things. You saw that we had an 8% increase from last year, had over 36,000 people come to the events, and 80% of our business is multi-day events. So we're really excited about the tourism that it brings into our community. A few highlighted events I wanted to talk about was, the AQHA show. We actually host the oldest quarter horse show in the state of Mississippi. Now we have different types of horse events out there. This is what you call a breed show. So you take a quarter horse and anything a quarter horse can do, whether it's English, you see their under saddle right there. They show them in showmanship, halter, performance classes, Western pleasure, they rope off of them, so it's anything that a quarter horse can do. In 2010, the horse show was small. We only rented 50 stalls, so the American Quarter Horse Association and the Mississippi Quarter Horse Association approached me and said, Brickley, we really want to do something to revamp this show. So will you take the management of the show over? And I said, well, certainly I will, but if we're going to do it, I'm going to make some big changes and take some gambles and see if we can't make it really go. So what I did is it normally costs $300 to $500 for a weekend for somebody to show their quarter horse. I went with a flat rate of $125. I went to the Dixie Nationals. Our show was in March. So in February of 2011, I went down to the Dixie Nationals and I walked through those barns and I shook every person's hand I could put my hand in. I introduced myself to them and I told them exactly what we were going to do, that we had a great facility and we wanted them to come and visit. Well, I want to let y'all know in 2011, I had a 267% increase from the year before. So by the time the second class was over, I'd already had as many entries as the year before. So we got worldwide exposure for that. We made the Quarter Horse Journal, which goes all over the world. So this year we did it again. We had another 21% increase. And we made the Market Bulletin and many things. So just a really positive experience. I only liked 40 stalls this year selling out. So this show in 3 years will be a sellout. The next event is the Lucky Dog Barrel Race. You know, we used to have the June Jam, the Speed Fest, the March Madness. We had those for years. They paid out over $1 million in barrel racing. Mary Jane came to me in 2010 and said, hey, Brickley, this is my last year to do it. You know, it's been great. I've done all these super shows, but I'm going to do something else. So I had to go find us somebody to put on a great barrel race. So I did. I contacted the Lucky Dog Barrel Race, and I want to tell y'all that this year on Super Bulldog Weekend, we had our largest show that we've ever had. I sold out every horse stall, every RV. They came in on Wednesday. They didn't leave till Monday, and I had to put up 42 temporary stalls. That means I was pulling cow panels out, sticking them under anywhere I could put them, and people were paying to put their horses in there. Fantastic event. I ran 1,835 entries in 3 days. So what's happened from all this? You know, we're getting all these events that are playing worldwide. We made the front cover of the Market Bulletin. We've been in all these national publications. Do y'all know the business is out there and they're wanting to come to Starkville? This year I had 3 national or world shows call me for bids. The Appaloosa World Show, the Palomino World Show, and the Pasafina. The Palomino went from Texas and they're now in Tunica. And the Pasafina went from Memphis and they're now at the Kentucky Horse Park. The exciting thing about this is I don't have a big enough facility to host them, so I have to get the cost on a temporary stall for them. It's a lot more, and I couldn't bid and be competitive with these other facilities because we don't have that much. But the excitement is that they actually wanted to come here. I didn't call them, they called us. I'm just going to talk about this briefly because I don't have long and I want to hit the high points. The harness track has been something that's come back up. Has not been used in several years. The harness racers are looking at wanting to have some races out here. We got a quote. It's a little more than everybody wants to probably invest right now. So I'm working with Pritchard Engineering to see what we can do to get the harness track back up and in a useful situation. So where are we right now? We've had 554 events to date. That's average of 42 a year. You can see where our economic impact numbers are. That was the smartest thing that I ever did in 2002 was start tracking that stuff statistically. You can see on there how it currently is for the percentages that y'all put in and the event to Mississippi State University. So what I did this year that was really exciting is I sent the economic numbers and the amount of investment by the city and the county to Mississippi State to the Stennis Institute. And I said, guys, are we doing a good job? Figure it out for me. So they went back and they figured it out. For every dollar that's been invested, we're getting $12.20 back on your investment. So I called him back. I said, is that good? And he said, that's fabulous, Brickley. Wouldn't you spend $1 to get $12.20 back? So what we're asking for y'all is to invest the $70,000, and that's less than 0.5% of your total budget. We've had 19 events so far this year, a lot of fantastic events. I know that you saw in February where Jennifer Gregory Glaze put in the about the 2% tourism and how that we play a vital role in that to give back to our community, to bring people in. We've got a lot of great things coming up. The Mississippi Paint Horse Show, they moved all of their events this year here from Canton. That's really exciting. We got 5 of those. Music Makers, which y'all are fixing to see some of the guys from Music Makers. We just started doing concerts out there, and we love working with them. We had Brantley Gilbert last year. We had Eric Church. We had Need to Breathe. Just some fabulous shows. We've got Pretty Lights coming up in September, and we've got one in August. And I can't tell you who it is because I'm sworn to secrecy until they announce it, but it's going to be a fabulous concert. So I'm really excited about that. Our go-kart racing is in its 3rd year. O'Reilly has pulled the $20,000 from Batesville facility, and our event's going to do that. Get that. So what's that's going to mean is it's going to grow even bigger because somebody's going to win $20,000 to race go-karts. So that's the importance of what we've got going on. Our fall classes start back with Mississippi State, and our RV parking has been beneficial for everybody. You can see that we've already got a great calendar for next year, and I keep getting the fingers that it's time my time is up, so I'm going to cut it short and say if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them now.
Just to clarify, that was 2 fingers for 2 minutes.
Okay.
Any questions or comments for Ms. Miller?
There's 350 out there right now. Yes, ma'am.
Questions or comments for Ms. Miller?
Ms.
Any
Brickley,
que-
you always do an excellent job.
Well,
I have
thank-
always been impressed.
I appreciate it. I saw you tapping your foot under the table a little bit. That's what I was looking for. I appreciate y'all. Thank you for your support.
Ms. Miller, you do indeed make an impressive presentation, and you run an impressive operation. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
all that you do.
We hope to see you at the horse park.
Thank you, Rick.
Only part was ours was the speakers.
All right, our next and final public presentation tonight is from the MSU Student Association to present the details of Bulldog Bash this year. Y'all will have 10 minutes, and ask that you'll remain seated for questions and comments from the members of the board when you finish.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much for letting us come out tonight. I'd like to acknowledge a couple of people for you first. This is Jackie Mullen. She's our Associate Director for Programs for the Culver Student Union and one of our advisors for the Student Association. Sarah Vance, who was sitting next to me, is one of the co-directors of Bulldog Bash. And we also have our Dean of Students, Thomas Bourgeois, they're back in the back corner. We are presenting you tonight with the 13th annual, hopefully, Bulldog Bash. This year it is set for November 2nd, which is the weekend of the Texas A&M game. We're hoping to draw in a couple of different types of visitors to our Starkville community and show them what a real SEC weekend experience is like. We are continuing to grow, so we do have a 12-year history to draw from, but we are going to be continuing many of the traditions that we've had from years past. I will point out to you within your package, you'll see that our special events application, it is very similar to the one we had last year, but I will point out a couple of changes that we plan to make for this year. First, we will only have one stage instead of having our main stage plus our district stage. We'll just have the main stage to help out with a little bit of the safety issues we've had in the past. With that, we are upping the security to make sure that we can provide that to the best of our ability, including easy access pass for first responders and EMTs. We'll be changing the type of barricades that we use between the VIP area and the main crowd in order to make it more stable. We'll use blowout barricades like what we use right in front of the main stage rather than the bicycle racks we have in the past. And we will also be increasing the number of portable restrooms that we've had in years past, including adding 2 ADA accessible restrooms. We have contacted the major landowners in the area and met with the city department officials with our special events committee meeting 2 weeks ago. And we appreciate your support thus far, and we certainly appreciate your time and consideration. I would entertain any questions at this point.
Do we have any questions or comments from the members of the board? Alderman Carver.
Should learn how to operate this iPad, but what are y'all's plans on the trash? I always ask about the trash and situations in years past, you know, making sure, do y'all have a plan for that afterwards? Or?
Yes, sir. We are going to have the 2 different colored trash pickup, trash bags. One of the green, one of the white, so that we can have certain committees that are apportioned to the area around the stage. We assign them for certain trash pickups, so we'll have some that'll come out for recyclables and then some that'll come out for the trash, and we'll have the different colors to differentiate that for the sanitation pickup.
Do y'all come back through at the end of the night like years past and
Yes,
kind of sweep
yes,
the area?
We'll go through that. We'll consolidate it to one area, then put it in the dumpster that the city's going to, we are asking to provide, just to help so that we can put it in one area. And we actually learned some other places that some citizens were concerned about in regards to certain streets, to make sure that we were getting the entire area covered that we were exposing our event to.
Thank you.
Alderman Corey.
I think you'd mentioned a little while ago that as part of this, you talked to landowners in the area affected by it. And this is a wonderful event. Obviously, it's a very large event, so it's had a big impact on businesses and people that live there. Was everyone amenable to the proposal that you had? Or did you have any concerns that y'all had to work out?
Yes, sir, they were very minimal. I spoke to, actually Jackie and I both went to meet with former Mayor Dan Camp yesterday morning. He had a couple of concerns and had a couple of the citizens that went from him come along for the meeting as well.
Okay.
We addressed some of their concerns, made sure that we can definitely accommodate those for the next year, and he was very amiable toward us for this year. He also mentioned another landowner that we might want to contact, Mr. George McKee, which is another landowner right across the street from his offices, as well as another apartment complex right behind the stage. And we made contact with him yesterday afternoon and addressed those concerns as well.
Great.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Oh, Mr. Latimer.
Question about insurance. I know it's too far out to get insurance right now, but my understanding from talking to MSU's Assistant Counsel, Brandon Jolly, and Mr. Bourgeois is that either MSU or the Student Association plans to get insurance pursuant to the Starkville Special Event Policy to the letter, which would include Starkville being an additional insured and a waiver of subrogation rights. Is that the intent?
I would actually yield that to Dean Bourgeois just so that I have.
It's at the same level that last year we're going to get the maximum that we did.
Okay.
Very similar to that we did last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any
We'll
fur-
provide that to the special events committee per
Absolutely.
their request as
Right.
well. Yeah.
Any further questions or comments from the members of the board? Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, let me say a special word of thank you. And this is always a trip down memory lane for me because I got to help with the Bulldog Bash once upon a time. And I will tell you, our concerns were much more whether we could get anybody to show up than the concerns that you have now. And I think you've done a fabulous job putting your package together. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we look forward to this event, and it's something that's extremely beneficial for the city of Starkville. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that concludes our public appearances for the evening, and that will take us to board business. The first matter under consideration for board business tonight is a request by the MSU Student Association for approval of the Bulldog Bash special event and request for in-kind city services.
I move approval with approval of special event permit and in-kind as stated in the packet.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion to approve of the special event permit and in-kind services for Bulldog Bash 2012 as stated in the packet. Alderman Dumas, is that your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the merits?
I do not.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discuss? Mr. Latimer.
Just before the board votes, it just needs to be aware that the application does not contain an indemnification provision, as we discussed the meaning of that and the practicalities of that at the last meeting. And I'd be happy to expound on that or let that rest from the last meeting. But that is lacking.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? And Alderman Carter.
So with that identification, are you saying that you're going to address that, or is that what you're referring to, that we should or shouldn't? Or?
We discussed it in detail in the last meeting, and just to put a little meat on those bones, this is the fourth application that has come across my desk when I've been the city attorney, and all of the previous applications had the student association get an indemnification or sign an indemnification agreement. And what that means is that if an accident occurred during Bulldog Bash on Starkville's premises, and if Starkville was sued for that, or there was another claim brought against Starkville for that the student association would defend and pay any damages or judgment that might come from that action. This year is a little bit different in that MSU has taken more control of the event as more of a partner with the SA and student association. And MSU has taken the position that the student association can no longer sign that indemnification agreement. And their position on that, as I understand it, and Dr. Bourgeois can chime in if I misstate anything, is that just like municipal governments and county governments are encouraged not to enter indemnification agreements by the AG as a violation of public policy, MSU takes the same position with respect to it being a public university. And so they've decided not to indemnify. And so again, I only raise the issue that when the board votes on this, it will vote with that informed consent, because it's my job to make sure you guys are covered as much as possible. And the insurance will meet the specs of our special events policy, but that indemnification will be different in that it will be lacking this year.
Is there any other event that we sponsor, any kind of public venue that does not have indemnification attached with it?
I can say it is part of our special events policy, and so it's customary for people to give us an indemnification agreement.
But any public entity that is sponsoring an event, if they are following the guidance of the AG's office as the city does, it's going to tell you that they cannot enter into an indemnification agreement because that same advice that we get with respect to our agreement, all public entities in the state of Mississippi get with respect to an indemnification agreement. Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those opposed, please signify by raising your hand. All those abstaining, please signify by raising your hand.
I guess I have to do something.
You don't have to.
Oh,
You
I
cannot
don't? Okay,
vote.
then I'm just gonna.
All right, by a vote of 6 in favor with none against, and Alderman Sistrunk, one board member present but not voting.
Thank you.
Is that correct? Okay. All right. The next matter on the agenda is the consideration of hiring a finance director, city clerk for the finance and administration department. Discussion.
Mayor.
Alderman Sistrunk.
We interviewed last week, and I, at this time, would like to move approval of the appointment of Taylor Adams as the Director of Finance, City Clerk for the City of Starkville at a grade 18 with a salary of $73,500 and an effective hire date of August 1st.
All right. The motion from Alderman Sistrunk is to hire Taylor Adams as Finance Director, City Clerk, for the Finance and Administration Department of the City of Starkville at a grade 18 with a salary of $73,500 per year and a start date on August 1st, 2012. Alderman Sistrunk, is that your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Dumas. Alderman Sistrunk, do you wish to speak on the merits?
I would. I'd like to say that we had a good candidate pool And I appreciate and thank all those who applied and interviewed for the position, for their interest in our city and our city government. Mr. Adams' combination of education and experience, his familiarity with our community, and his energy and enthusiasm for city government work make him uniquely qualified for this position, and I think he will be an asset to the city going forward.
Further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of Alderman Sistrunks' motion, please signify by raising your hand. Oh, there was no need to do that. All those opposed? By a vote of 7 in favor with 0 against, this measure passes. Congratulations, Mr. Adams.
I'd like to go on and say a comment. I was going to say mine. Same kind of comment Alderman Sistrunk said. You've got big shoes to fill, but at the same time, to be one of the most important assets to the city of Starkville. The city is on the verge of growth, and you'll learn that. And we asked you that question the other night, and it was kind of a front-end loaded question of what are you going to do the next 6 months? And I think you answered the best of most everybody that says, you'd come in and done a little research. Continue to research, continue to grow. Spend a couple months just getting to know everybody, because enjoy the good handshakes while they last. And we'll look forward to it. I think you'll be a promising city clerk, finance director. Thank you.
May the honeymoon be as long as possible.
Maybe longer than an hour.
All right, the next matter before you is the consideration of advertising for the vacant position of Sanitation and Environmental Services Department Head. Discussion.
I've got a motion. Ms. Sproul has this reduced, and I'll read it for the board.
Okay.
I move approval of advertising this position at grade 16 with applications due July the 31st, interviews to occur on August the 14th, and the consideration of the appointment to occur on August 21st, and that we form a committee consisting of Alderman Parker, Lynn Sproul, and the Director of Finance to evaluate operational and financial efficiencies specific to and only to the Department of Sanitation and Environmental Services, and to present their findings at the August 7th board meeting.
Alderman Dumas has made a motion which he has both stated and reduced to writing. Since it has been reduced to writing, I will not reread it without objection. Any objection? Seeing none.
Can I just have who was on the committee?
Let me just clarify that for everyone. So, you, as the committee chair, or the committee liaison for sanitation and recycling, or solid waste and recycling, Ms. Sproul is the CAO, and the Director of Finance, Taylor Adams, to look at operational and financial efficiencies, to look at things we can do and evaluate things.
All right, hold on, let me get through the motion. No objection to not rereading Alderman Dumas's motion. It goes as reduced to writing and stated. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Parker. Alderman Dumas, you wish to speak on the matter?
I do not.
Discussion. Alderman Sistrunk.
I just want to be sure that we're clear that you're tasking them with looking at our current operations, and we are not in any way suggesting that this be outsourced.
Right. I think there are, I want to be sure that we're looking at all efficiencies that are there, things that can be done, both financially and operationally.
And there's certainly things to be learned from the private sector. Don't get me wrong there.
Absolutely. And I think as those things are presented as part of this interview process, it only strengthens the candidate's ability to succeed.
Further discussion. Alderman Parker.
Has there been discussion on, during this, as far as an interim, what are we doing? Is that department, we're gonna?
It will continue as is under the supervision of, as all our departments are, ultimately, the chief administrative officer and me.
Okay. That's fine.
I guess that was going to be my same question, was the time frame. This is going to be something, I don't want this to drag out months on end, but are y'all looking at, is there an end date to this, or you want to report back by?
In the motion, it was, so the applications are due the 31st of July. We'll interview on the 14th, which will be a special recess meeting. And then we will consider the appointment of the candidate on the 21st, so the second meeting in August. So we should be able to seat that position at that point.
Okay.
Further discussion. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And that exhausts the open session portion of our agenda. That will carry us to executive session. You do have a couple of matters that have been brought before your attention in executive session.
I move that we go into closed session to determine the need of executive session.
Alderman Demas has made a motion to go into closed session to determine whether there is a need for an executive session. Alderman Demas, that's your motion?
It is.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Demas, you wish to speak on the merits? Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure clearly passes. And we will now offer everybody an opportunity to click the session.
That's what I was asking.
At this time, we have nothing remaining on our agenda this evening.
I move that we adjourn until the first meeting in the month of August.
Alderman Demas has made a motion to adjourn until August 7th, 2012 at 5:30, 101 Lampton Street, City Hall courtroom. Alderman Demas, that's your motion? Alderman Demas, that's your motion?
Yes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion been seconded by Alderman Corey. Alderman Demas, you wish to speak on the matter?
No.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, let's hear from somebody other than Alderman Parker this time. Please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please signify by saying nay. Measure passes. Stand adjourned. All right, I'm going to have a break.